Hello everyone, I am the Catholic Bible Geek. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to make this video before Halloween and All Saints Day, and I've struggled with coming up with some sort of an outline, because this is one of my, it kind of bridges into one of my favorite topics, or my own scholarship, anyway, as a professor. So it's really hard to keep it short and to not go all over the place. So I probably am going to go all over the place. I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to. But what I wanted to talk about with the with Halloween. So if you watch my channel for any number of amount of time or whatever, you know that I came to Catholicism through Protestant evangelical churches. Tried out a bunch, grew up in one that was just called the Christian Church. Originally it was some sort of offshoot of Church of Christ, but it was very different than Church of Christ too. But very Armenian, I looked into and attended the Baptist church for a while, swinging into the Calvinism thing for a bit. Church of the Nazarene, swinging back to the Armenian. Was in a Calvary chapel for a long time. And eventually it was just, there was a logical blink I found, in that the Bible alone is just insufficient. It's insufficient for the Christian life, for the Christian history, for the Christian philosophy. There needed to be more, and I couldn't find anything in the Bible that stated that the Bible was all you needed, and yet that's what I was, standing on, and everybody around me was standing on, and it just wasn't enough. And when I mean it not enough, I don't mean anything. The Bible's the Word of God, and as a Catholic, I certainly believe that, and I read it every day, try to read it every day, delve into it. It's vital. But I would ask questions of pastors sometimes, difficult questions. And they would either go back and look at whatever their denomination or whatever their mentors taught them, or they would just try to there's this sort of delusion that the Bible is all you need. The Bible will interpret itself. Let's just read the Bible for what the Bible says, guys. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's only a matter of time before you come up with discrepancies and things. And what ends up doing when people who are just reading the Bible for the Bible, they end up just having this growing number of topics that they're like, well, I guess we don't know about that, so let's just put that over in the mysteries, and that's over in the mysteries, and that's over in the mysteries, because you don't know. And then there are certain passages that will stand on certain doctrines that as an evangelical Christian they're going to hold, very dear, so they'll try to work out some way, or some sort of which way that they can try to use this to interpret that, and that to interpret this, and make that work. And I saw through that. I don't know if I could have articulated it at that time like I'm doing now, but I saw through that. So though I didn't leave my Christian faith, I always believed in Christ and the basic tenets of Christianity. I stopped going to church for years and really didn't know what to believe other than the basic tenet of Christ, Son of God, come to sacrifice for us and whatnot. C.S. Lewis would ingrain the mere Christianity within me that I couldn't really let go of those nuts and bolts. But it wasn't until coming into Catholicism that it just was such a breath of fresh air. It was like, this is a huge tradition of scholarship, of intellectual thought in the interior life. People have thought about these things, have lived these things, have practiced these things, have tried these things out, and we've got this wonderful church. And then realizing that this is the church, that's the idea. Christ didn't leave behind a Bible, he left behind a church. And that church is still with us, and they give us all these beautiful things that aren't just nothing that contradicts the Bible, obviously, because it's both Bible and tradition. It's our divine revelation. And but we have the wonderful tradition to flesh things out. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. So when I say all that, it's kind of a lengthy preamble, but I say all of that to explain what I'm about to say, is that when I encounter some Catholics who are very just sort of knee-jerk reaction, no, Halloween's dangerous. Halloween's dangerous. Don't celebrate Halloween. Guys, don't celebrate. Look at that. It's evil. People are out there dressed like witches and goblins and ghouls. That's not of God, people. And I'm thinking, that's like a Protestant reaction. And it's kind of like a little disconcerting that so many, a lot of Catholics are falling into that. So now's where I get to the point where if I'm not being very specific, I'm going to confuse people or offend people, and I don't mean to do that. A lot of specifics. Okay, so let's just admit, as Protestant, Catholic, whatever Christians, we can all agree that the holiday of Halloween does come with possible dangers, right? It's very easy to see pagans today picking up that holiday and trying to tout it as their, like, their Christmas or something like that. Trying to tie it to ancient pagan holidays and saying it's always been theirs. It hasn't. It's the Hallows Eve, All Hallows Eve. It's Saints Day, the eve before All Saints Day. And culture hasn't always celebrated it as that. But there's that danger today. And there's just a danger too, I think, of people who, I'm a geek when it comes to superheroes and stuff like that, and a lot of different things, Star Wars and whatnot. And there's a danger with anybody who has a fandom like that. There's a danger that you can get so far into the fandom that you're trying to make the fandom do things for you which only God should do for you, in terms of defining your identity, taking up most of your time, most of your thought, most of your memory, and all of that. So there's a danger there, and I think we are seeing people getting really into horror, are getting really into the spooky season of Halloween, which I love, but putting it on a pedestal, making an altar out of it, making a false god out of it, quite frankly. And that's a subtle thing, the people who do it certainly wouldn't know they're doing it. So if you're listening to this going, well, I don't do that, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But that's a danger, that's a problem. There are a lot of dangers associated with Halloween. I think we could all agree with that. But to sit there and say that because of that, Halloween has no use whatsoever, or sometimes I hear people say, Catholics will say, hey, we need to reclaim this holiday. It is the eve before All Saints Day, rightly so we need to reclaim it. Guys, don't let your kids dress up as these ghouls and stuff like that. Have them dress up as saints. Isn't that swell? Isn't that special? The church lady, have them go hand out Bible verses instead of tricks or treats, or whatever. It's just, and I'm thinking that, you just so misunderstand everything that's special about Halloween. So I'm sending missed signals now, I know, but don't worry, I'm winding down into my subject. I do believe that Halloween, as Catholics, I believe it should absolutely be celebrated as the precursor to All Saints Day. I think that as Catholics, we need to celebrate a lot more the wonderful feast of All Saints Day. It's a beautiful feast, and it's all the more beautiful because we have Halloween coming before it. I'll explain what I mean. But when I say that, I don't mean that I think we just need to remove all of the trappings of Halloween and replace it with nice, healthy Catholic saint stuff, No. There is a wonderful, profound psychology to a child. One night a year, this child is going to dress up as the thing that scares it every other night of the year. And that night of the year, that child's going to go out wearing the semblance of that thing, not trying to be that thing, not trying to become evil, but as a way of mastering it. Childhood psychology is so dependent on story, as is adult psychology, but especially childhood psychology. We need story. We need those fairy tales. And Halloween's such a beautiful part of that. They can maybe make some light mischief. I'm not saying they need to go out and egg people's houses and vandalize or anything like that. Certainly not. But, when I was growing up, friends, it was just fun. I don't know. We didn't really do anything bad, but just, it wasn't even trespassing, but feeling like we were trespassing on somebody's yard. Well, it's trick-or-treating. Everybody's going there, whatever. I don't know. But the point is, it felt like we were being naughty or something like that. And that's a healthy psychology because it says that one night a year is for that. It's to lay claim on these things that scare you the rest of the year. It's to take ownership of these things. To also, and children don't realize this at all, they couldn't articulate this, but what's happening is they're even as a child, they're addressing their shadow a little bit, in those moments. And the beautiful thing about Halloween is that it's followed by All Saints Day, which is beautiful. It's the light will always conquer the darkness. Look, at nighttime, certain things happen or whatever, but the light will always conquer the darkness. And I'm not a believer in people, being satanic on Halloween or anything like that. But I don't see any problem with little, like the traditional witch, the fairy tale witch. Not a Wiccan, nothing like that, or something like that. I've got skeletons and little pumpkin heads hung up outside because there's supposed to be this, I'm going to say this word, it's going to turn a lot of people off, but there's a magic about the season. And I mean that in the same way I would say there's a magic about the Christmas season, although I mean there's a very different type of magic about that. But stories and the cultural, psychological holiday that it's become in our culture is healthy. And it's nothing to be, sneered at. Now, people today are celebrating it in very unhealthy ways, for sure. That doesn't mean you throw out the whole baby with the bathwater, though. You wouldn't do that about other things. I hear people, for example, talk about video games. Oh, video games, they're terrible. They're not like they were when we were kids. They're dangerous. They're bloody. There's incidents where, mass shooters and whatnot have said that they got this influence from these games. And, they're just horrible. Well, that's horrible if that happened. And I don't doubt it for a second that there's some horrible video games out there. That doesn't mean video games. The nature of a video game is objectively evil. That doesn't mean that everything modern about video games is objectively evil. I enjoy video games. Good stories that you can play through or whatever and practice and live through that moment is a fun thing. The right kind of games, right? There are certainly bad games. You wouldn't say that about reading. We could do that same Halloween/video game, propaganda. We could say that about reading. Guys, reading is dangerous. Reading has led to people getting all these false ideas about God and the world. It's led people to kill themselves, getting these ideas and whatnot. It's inspired movements. It's inspired horrible holocausts and movements throughout our history. Reading's dangerous, guys. You need to stop your children from reading right now. No one would say that. That's absolutely absurd. What you would say is, hey, parents, or not even parents, but people in the society, teachers, neighbors, whatever, you have a responsibility to make sure that your children or the people around you or whatever are being healthy about these or anything. That's the idea. There's nothing intrinsically evil about Halloween, about trick-or-treating on Halloween, about dressing up as your favorite character or your favorite monster or whatever. Nothing intrinsically evil about that. What I think, and I think Catholics who see the dangers that Halloween can go into, the real dangers, and they think they're going to do something good by trying to say, no, just reclaim it for All Saints Day and just celebrate All Saints Day and, dress up as saints instead of monsters or whatever. I think they're missing the mark so much on the usefulness of the holiday because that usefulness has been ingrained in our culture, even in ways that some people who celebrate the holiday in unhealthy ways, they know innately, even though they can't articulate it. Like I said, I've been saying that a lot, but they're gonna react against that. They're gonna think you're one of those batty, crazy old, okay, everything's got to be, have a Jesus sticker on it or we can't touch it, that kind of nonsense, and they're gonna write you off. Whereas if we, as Catholics, could instead tell the world, hey, Halloween, yeah, there's a lot of healthy ways to celebrate Halloween. It is fun, yeah, trick or treating, whatever, yeah, hey, watch a monster movie, whatever. But here's the thing not to lose sight of: that Halloween is ultimately about good versus evil. And ultimately, it's about the triumph of good over evil. Because Halloween, the nighttime gives way to the morning of All Saints' Day. It's like Sound Engraver talks about the end of the Disney movie Fantasia. You got that night on Bald Mountain and Chernobog and the demons and the witches, and it's terrifying maybe to a little child, but that gives way. The sky opens, the sun comes out. Chernobog himself is frightened away by the light, and then you have this wonderful cathedral-like image through the forest with the Ave Maria being played. That's the lesson. Stop just wincing because you're so sensitive about the darkness. The Bible's got some scary, dark things in it. I mean, don't pretend that it doesn't. But you wouldn't throw out the Bible. You would say the point of the Bible is that the good defeats the evil. That's the deal. And in a society today we're living in where people are really just giving over to nihilism. I know a lot of people, horror movie enthusiasts, who just, they eat up these movies where it's just, there's no moral of the story. And there's no good triumphing in the end. I'm like, what's the benefit? I don't understand the benefit at all of watching something where just everybody dies or everything's horrible or everything. Like that seeps into your soul. I'm not saying that everything has to have an happy ending, because I really love some of the moralized folk tales of like Nathaniel Hawthorne or Washington Irving. Or even Edgar Allan Poe, though he wasn't really coming at it so much from a Christian mindset, but I think they still work in that manner. But yeah, you got moralized, warnings, don't do this kind of thing. But for the most part, stories are about good versus evil. That's what a good classic monster movie is. I love that kind of thing. Let's talk about the light triumphing over the darkness. I could go on, but I'm gonna I'd be here for 20-40 minutes. I'm gonna make myself kind of stop now. I think I've at least sort of lightly hit on all the topics I wanted to talk about. We could go much farther. Maybe if you wanted to do a live stream and we could really delve into it, we could. But I am going to come back next week though with some more about not only All Saints and All Souls Day, but also just the month of November and the beautiful month that we have to pray for our brothers and sisters in purgatory. What that is. And if you're a Protestant viewer of mine and you don't know what purgatory is, or you just bristled at that word, Go back and watch the recent video I did, or at least the most recent on this channel, called Praying for the Dead or Praying for Souls or whatever. You'll understand exactly what we mean. We're not praying anybody into heaven that would be otherwise going to hell. That's blasphemy. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. I'm going to stop myself, make myself stop. Thanks for watching. Until next time, God bless.